All right, Title Tribe, welcome back. Welcome back. It is George. I am bringing you another off-season breakdown. As you can tell, today we have the Los Angeles Chargers. And even though Justin was supposed to be here, something popped up. He could not make it, but it's okay because I still have two very amazing, talented guests. First, I have John Hesterman. John, why don't you go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself, where they can follow you, support your work, and all that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. You can find my written work over at dynastyleaguefootball.com. I also do DFS work for Fantasy Pros, and I'm part of the expert ranker consensus there. So you can follow me on Twitter at John_Hesterman. Can we still say Twitter? Are we calling it X now? What are we doing? You can follow me there.
Whatever feels right.
Yeah, at John_Hesterman.
And also with us today, we have David Droegemeier from Locked On Chargers. David, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody where they can follow you and support you as well.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah, David Droegemeier here. I am one of the co-hosts of the Locked On Chargers podcast. We are your team every day. We do 5 shows a week on the Chargers, covering it all the time, man. Every single angle we are talking about the Bolts. You can find me on Twitter at DroTalkSD. You can find the Twitter account for the podcast on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. And we're everywhere on YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts, you can find us.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and start the show. We'll be right back with you. All right, welcome back. So we're going to jump right into some Los Angeles Chargers offseason talk here. But before we do, I always like to pick the brains of the guests that come on. John, I'm going to start with you and pick your brain here. You cannot say LaDainian Tomlinson, okay? Outside of him, who is your favorite player in Chargers history?
I was a huge fan of Antonio Gates. For the whole time he played, man, that guy was just, he was a walking wall that could catch the ball, that could move, he could juke, he could knock it down. The Rivers to Gates thing won me some big key matchups, and it just, I've always loved Antonio Gates. He, outside of LT, he's got to be up there.
Yep, and he literally one of the two guys you can look at that changed the tight end position that to what it is that we know it is today. So excellent choice. David, same question to you, my friend. Can't say LD. Favorite Chargers player in history?
I mean, I absolutely love Antonio Gates too, but for the sake of being different here, I'll say Phillip Rivers. I mean, I think just because he was the quarterback that I watched primarily growing up. For 16 seasons, he was the guy at the helm for the Chargers, and just his attitude, his ferocity, his intelligence, his cerebral nature. His just competitive fire. Like, it was so fun to watch him, just go out there and give it his all every single time he was out there on the football field. It was an absolute true, like privilege to be able to watch him play football. And it's a shame he never got a championship. He absolutely deserved one, especially after playing after a torn ACL, like literally tore his ACL, had surgery, played in a playoff game the very next week. One of the most absolutely toughest individuals in the history of the NFL. So Phillip Rivers, definitely one of my favorite players ever to watch.
And a great trash talker. Let's not include.
Let's
not forget that.
Sure.
With no cussing. Right. Ever.
PG trash talk. You got to love it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at what he's doing now, he's almost got a whole football team going at home. So
number 10 on the way.
Yeah. If he quarterbacks, he can make it happen.
Great guy all around. All right, David, I'm going to throw this one over to you. Before we get going looking forward for the 2023 season, we have to recognize the 2022 season happened. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say the success of the 2022 season was? And what went right, what went wrong in your opinion for that season?
Yeah, so I mean, if I had to put a percentage of success as far as a 1 to 10, I would say probably like a 6.5 or 7. I think that's probably where I'm at with that, just because like this team had a lot of expectations going into it. Like this is a team that spent a lot of money in free agency. Like they went out there and got J.C. Jackson. They got Sebastian Joseph Day, the defensive lineman, Austin Johnson. They traded for Khalil Mack. Like they made a lot of big moves to be able to compete. And unfortunately, a lot of injuries happened. You know, they lost Rashawn Slater, their left tackle. I mean, Keenan Allen was in and out. Their center, Corey Linsley, was out. Joey Bosa missed most of the season. So the fact that the Chargers were able to weather the storm and they were still able to weather those injuries and make it to the playoffs, I think is a testament. Even, you know, with Justin Herbert being severely injured as well. I mean, I think that's a testament to the coaching staff and the players in that building. But whenever you get to the playoffs and you have a historic lead in the first half and you crumble and you absolutely fumble the bag and you lose in such just legendary, like charging fashion, you can't absolutely, you know, go any further than that. I mean, this team right now, like the Chargers, they made a lot of restructures to be able to bring a lot of those same pieces back. Now it's now or never, because like after Justin Herbert signs his big contract, the Chargers are not going to be able to keep this core of very expensive, very talented players together. So, I mean, just a very horrible way to end it, but the Chargers have to hope that they get that and make it fuel for this season.
Chargering. I'm going to have to look that word up later and make sure that word actually exists. I'm not sure.
Unfortunately, it does.
It does.
It does. Okay, I was saying I'm not sure if you made that up on the fly or not, but I'm gonna have to fact check that word. I'm not sure. John, I got the same exact question for you. Scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate the 2022 season, and what went right, what went wrong?
I tell you, it's difficult to look at it and say in a season in which we made it to the playoffs to be less than an 8, but I'm gonna give it in that 6 to 7 range, because the way we lost that game, like David was talking about, was just such a kick in the crotch to all of us who build up a big lead. You play well. So I do like the adversity that we played through. I do like the tenacity and the toughness that Justin Herbert showed in being able to play even at a diminished level through the injury he was facing with the broken rib cartilage. Very painful. If you've ever broken ribs, you know what it's like. You can't sneeze, cough, fart, sing, nothing. It's terrible. So it was a disappointing way to end the season. And it's a lot like David said, like the money you spent in free agency, you tried to tighten up that defense a little bit. You know what you have on offense, and you're trying to make that click and make that work. So it was a really, truly disappointing end to the season. And yeah, definitely charging to the end there.
Yeah, as far as what went right, I mean, Justin Herbert was very, very good as far as, you know, how he performed throughout through the injury, with that serious injury. I mean, first couple of games, yeah, it was tough. He was trying to figure out how he was able to move after getting those pain relieving shots. But after things started to calm down a little bit, like you started to see those like really, really good throws start to return to his game. And so that like is one of the things I think that went right. I mean, their ability to weather the storm on the injuries. As far as what went wrong was pretty much mostly, you know, no creativity on offense. Like the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, just was very, very predictable. I think they did not have a running game. They're one of the worst rushing offenses in the league. On defense, they were terrible against the run. They give up almost 5.5 yards per carry. They were awful. I mean, it's just like almost one of the worst in NFL history, like that type of bad. Also giving up way too many explosive plays, whether that's, you know, big 40+ yard rushes or 40-yard pass plays. The Chargers defense gave up way too much of that last year. So, I mean, that I think is what went right and what went wrong for the Chargers last season.
So you guys brought in a new offensive coordinator this offseason. I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. Yeah, that's what I thought. I wanted to confirm.
Sure.
You guys brought in Kellen Moore this offseason. John, I'm going to throw this to you to start. What type of offensive philosophy do you expect the Chargers to play with this year?
He's going to bring the heat in the passing game. He's creative when it comes to finding ways to throw guys open, to scheme for coverages. He's really sharp when it comes to that, former quarterback himself. I think he's going to elevate what we already see as being an uber talented Justin Herbert. And I think he's going to elevate the pass catchers in this offense. You're going to see a lot more vertical attacks. You're going to see a lot more trying to not necessarily different personnel packages, but you're going to see him try to find the mismatches and exploit them open, as opposed to just trying to gain chunk yardage across the middle. So I am really looking forward to what he brings as a downfield threat. He also, I mean, we saw what he did, with the running game there in Dallas. So he's going to bring a new look to that rushing tandem, and we have yet to see who the RB2 is actually going to be. Training camp's just getting fired up, but he's going to know how to utilize Eckler because he utilized Pollard in some similar fashions. So I like what he's going to bring to both sides of the offense, and I think we're going to see a lot more explosive plays come out of this offense this year.
David, you look like you're just jumping to answer this question. Go for it, my friend. Go for it.
Big time explosive plays, man. I mean, he's going to attack. Like his core philosophies is play smart, play fast, and attack. Like he wants to be an offense that is going to vary their tempos. They're going to try to attack weaknesses. They are going to throw the ball down the field, and they're going to call it aggressively, and they're going to allow Justin Herbert to play it aggressively and take chances, because Justin Herbert has the type of arm where he can throw it anywhere on the football field with strength and pinpoint accuracy. I mean, and he can do it on the run. He's one of the special passers in this league. And honestly, I think the best is in front of him. But I love what he's going to bring to this team as far as balance. That's the most important element here, is taking a little bit off of Justin Herbert's plate, having him not have to be Superman, right? You're going to have a running identity. That's what was missing. I think Corey Linsley brought it up when he was talking in the press conferences. He said, hey, we had some plays that were successful, but we didn't have any schemes that we could go to. And we can really say, hey, these are our calling card type of plays. Like, these are the ones that we know we're going to be able to execute. That's what Kellen Moore is going to bring to this rushing offense, is an identity, some core schemes and plays that they can use, they can go to, and that's going to be very effective. That is what's very exciting for me, other than the downfield passing that we are definitely going to see from this offense this year.
Awesome. So, John, you're my fantasy guy here. So I got a fantasy booking question here for you. If you could take any two players outside of the quarterback position's off limits. And so is Aaron Donald, by the way. No one can take Aaron Donald anymore. All the other lockdown guys ruined Aaron Donald for every show going forward. You could take any two players across the NFL from any team. Salary cap doesn't matter. Trade capital does not matter. You just, like the little machine at the mall. You just go in, you pick that player, you move them over, and you drop them on the Chargers. Who are you taking?
For fantasy purposes?
No, for helping your team win the Super Bowl.
For real football? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, one of the ones I was hoping for during the offseason was Mike Gesicki. You've got a guy that plays the tight end position. He's really just a bigger version of a wide receiver. He can play the slot. He can play outside. He's not a great blocker. So that aspect is lacking, but we have some people that can fulfill that role. So it wouldn't be a hole. It would just be a personnel change. But Mike Gesicki is a really adept, athletic pass catcher that I would have liked to have seen land in this offense. So he's definitely in that range for me as well. The second, I almost want to look at the defensive side of the ball and get someone else to help rush the passer.
Anyone, regardless of contract, anyone in the league.
Money doesn't matter. You're just taking them from
it's not just who's available. It's anyone on any team.
Yep.
Boy, I like this. And you said I can't have Aaron Donald, right?
Besides Aaron Donald, but anybody else.
He's off limits. So here's why. Because every time I ask this question, typically what this does is it leads into what are the biggest holes on the Chargers that needed to be filled that have not been filled through free agency and the draft. Yeah. And because you're looking at the roster, you're like, okay, So right now I'm thinking you guys are weak at tight end because you went with a tight end. So if you're telling me you want like an edge rusher, like let's say you want Chase Young, right? You take a Chase Young from Washington, send him right on over to the Chargers. So that tells me, okay, you guys need help on the D line. You guys need help on the edge rushing the passer. It's a backdoor way of asking what positions do you guys really need help with.
Well, in that case, it would be like a Minka Fitzpatrick and like a Fred Warner. Like, I mean, those are the two type of players that I would want, right? I would want another safety to pair with Derwin James, a guy that I know I can trust on the back end. I know that can tackle well. I know that, can allow Derwin James to be the chess piece that he is. I mean, he is really at his best when he's able to move around and get close to the football, be able to go in the slot, be able to cover your best wide receiver, whatever the Chargers need him to do. That's where he's at his best. So I would get another safety, and then linebacker is a little bit of a position that I'm a little concerned with, but I would say tight end as well. But it's more so blocking tight end, because last year Trey McKitty was the primary blocking tight end, and that did not go well. I mean, it was very much a down year for him. He was not able to provide any kind of blocking assistance there, so that was a major downfall. So, yeah, I think looking at holes, it's safety. I mean, John Johnson was a big popular name for a lot of Charger fans out there. They just felt like it made a lot of sense. I mean, it was a former player who worked with Brandon Staley in the past, played very, very well with Brandon Staley with the Rams, and he's still available. He's still out there. So, I mean, that just feels like that would be a name that, I don't understand why that hasn't happened up to this point. But, yeah, I mean, not a lot of available spots, but safety, that's one of those spots that I feel like that still needs to be addressed.
And what makes this one kind of difficult, like the Chargers, if you look at their roster top to bottom, it's a very good roster. There's not a whole lot of holes to fill. So I can see why this would be kind of a difficult question to answer, because like when I interviewed the guy from Locked On Commanders, like, the Commanders, they're good, but they had so many holes. Like, he was just like, can I get 3 players? Can I get 4? Like, and one of them was Aaron Donald. I'm like, okay, we're done with Aaron Donald after this. Can't do it. But all right, so let's roll over to, you guys were talking about Kellen Moore and the running backs and what he's going to do with Austin Eckler. Let's talk about that running back position. After this year, Austin Eckler is probably going to be an unrestricted free agent unless he gets tagged. What can we expect for the depth of the running backs on the Chargers going forward for this year?
Well, I mean, as far as this year is concerned, it's Joshua Kelly and it's Isaiah Spiller. I mean, and Joshua Kelly was the guy that last year really transformed his body. Like he changed his habits. He went out there, changed his regiment. He looked really, really good, and he played really, really well last year as well. He did get hurt a little bit, unfortunately, which took some of that luster away from his performance. But those are going to be the two guys that are going to be battling it out for the back end of that running back rotation. Isaiah Spiller never really got going at all last year. Didn't really get any opportunities. I think it just took some time for him to get healed, to get comfortable, and also to go out there and know the playbook and be trusted in pass protection. So when you have a quarterback out there that's dealing with a rib cartilage injury, you can't really afford to put a running back out there that you don't trust in pass protection. So I think all of those things were things that he needed to work on, and I think this offseason is going to be a big battle to see who's going to be able to secure that RB2 position, because after this year, the only guy that's under contract is Isaiah Spiller. So there's going to be some changes after this season.
John, you got anything you want to add to that?
No, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to bring up. It's Isaiah Spiller and Joshua Kelly, and Joshua Kelly actually impressed me last year versus what we saw the previous year from him. Yeah. I expected Isaiah Spiller to kind of hit the ground running, and that didn't really happen. But Joshua Kelly was a very pleasant surprise in how he played last year compared to the previous.
Yeah, he was a full yard better per carry than he was the year before. So I think he was about 3.2, and then he went up to about 4.2 last season. So it was a huge change.
Yep.
So let's move over to the wide receiver position on the Chargers. I think that's one of the better and most deeper positions across the entire NFL is the Chargers wide receiver position. There's probably a handful of teams that are nearly as deep as them, but they've got, 3 three fantastic wide receivers with Mike Williams, one of my favorite guys in the whole NFL, Keenan Allen, and then they drafted a rookie in the first round, Quentin Johnston, this year. John, talk to me a little bit about those wide receivers out there.
I love the wide receiver core we have. Keenan Allen is annually disrespected. Crisp route runner. He's fast enough to make it work. Great hands. I was tweeting about that today. He's fantastic. Mike Williams, good vertical threat, big baller. He can box you out. He can high point the ball. The only thing Mike Williams needs to learn is how to fall. If dude could learn how to fall without dying, he'd be one of the most dominant receivers out there from a vertical standpoint. Bringing in Quentin Johnston, I love it because we got to see what Joshua Palmer brings to the table. He's a very solid. He's like a jack of all trades, master of none kind of receiver. He can do everything you ask him to do, but he doesn't really have a specialization that separates him from everybody else. He's reliable. He's good. He will have a role in this offense. I'm really excited to see what Quentin Johnston, one of the best yards after the catch receivers that college football had to offer last year, can do in this offense with a well-schemed Kellen Moore offense and a big-armed pinpoint accuracy quarterback in Justin Herbert.
Amen. I love it. Everything that you had to say there. I think the Chargers, when I think about the Chargers wide receiver room, it's diversity. They have so many different type of weapons that they can attack you with. They have one of the best possession wide receivers in the NFL in Keenan Allen. They have a jump ball monster in Mike Williams. They have a speed threat, a stretch the field guy in Jalen Guyton. They have a guy that can fill in and do a little bit of everything, like you said, John, and Joshua Palmer. And now they have another gadget guy in Darius Davis, a guy who's going to be the primary kick returner, punt returner, but he runs a 4.3. And like he did do those gadget plays at TCU. And when he did them, it looked like it was supposed to look. A guy that if he gets the edge, he can take it to the house. And so I think this offense, this wide receiver room, so many different ways that they can attack you. Very, very dangerous. I would hate to be opposing defensive coordinators to have to worry about scheming against those guys.
So John brought up the big-armed pinpoint accuracy quarterback when he was talking about the wide receivers. David, I'm gonna throw this one to you. Some guy named Justin Herbert, right? Supposedly a good quarterback.
Who's that?
Probably. I think he signed a new contract. It wasn't a whole lot, just 5 years, $262 million for 5 years. He might be okay.
$262.5 million. Yeah,
don't forget that point. Very important.
I didn't mean to short him. I did not mean to short him. Talk to me about the quarterback there, David.
Yeah, so Justin Herbert now is the highest paid quarterback or highest paid player in NFL history as far as average annual value. So $52.5 million per season, which is just unbelievable, gigantic money, but it's well-deserved. I mean, as far as Justin Herbert's concerned, through his first 3 years in his career, he's broken numerous records. We're talking about passing yards, passing attempts, 300-plus yard games, total touchdowns. I mean, it's just unbelievable what Justin Herbert's been able to do through his first 3 seasons, and I think this is going to be his best year yet. I mean, Justin Herbert is going into a situation where he has a great offensive line in front of him, an unbelievable amount of weapons at the wide receiver position, some good tight ends to be able to throw to, and the right guy calling the plays in Kellen Moore. I think he's in for a monumental, like big time 5,000 plus yard season, potentially an MVP type season. I think all of the elements are there for Justin Herbert, but now the expectations change. When you get that type of money, going to the playoffs is simply it's not enough. Like that's not the benchmark anymore. The benchmark now is championships. It's about getting Lombardi trophies. That's what the Chargers paid Justin Herbert to do for the Chargers.
And John, same question to you, but if you could do me a favor, throw a fantasy spin on this. What can we expect from Justin Herbert from a fantasy perspective?
I love it. And yeah, there's not a whole lot to add to what David was talking about. He's exactly right. This is, I already saw it on Twitter. He signed that agreement. He signed that deal yesterday, and people were clamoring in the Twitter streets about all this for never winning a playoff game. Well, there's some factors there that I'm not even going to bother getting into. But the point is to kind of add and spin it off to the fantasy side. I do believe what David just said. I do believe we have the potential of a 5,000-yard passing season from him. I do believe that 40-plus passing touchdowns is in the realm of possibility with him. In fact, I'd be kind of disappointed if he wasn't really close or above that mark based on the weapons he has, the offense is going to be executed, and the talent he brings to the table. So from a fantasy perspective, last year was disappointing due to the injury. He was drafted as the QB2, the QB3, right in that range, and he didn't finish there because he was battling that injury. Now he's slipped down. He's QB7, he's QB8 as far as ADP, and I think now this is the season to get in on him because you're getting him at a discount, and he's going to bring the noise.
And I think that rushing element to his game is gonna return too, because he's gonna be back to being fully healthy now. I think from a fantasy perspective, that's gonna be another thing that's gonna make him even more valuable this season as opposed to last season when he was dealing with the rib injury. He just couldn't run.
So for 100% selfish reasons, I hope Justin Herbert does have that 5,000-yard season, 45 touchdowns. Because I got him in the Scott Fishbowl at pick number 10, which I could not believe. So for those purposes, I hope he's there, but I hope he kind of flounders week 1. But that's for another story. That's for another reason, another show. We're not going to go into there. All right, so real quick.
Did you say you got him at pick 10?
Yes, I did.
Dude, that's awesome.
I could not believe it. Could not believe it. It was
crazy value.
My guys were being very nice to me. I don't know why. I just don't know why. Let's talk a little bit about your guys' schedule this year. What do you think about the schedule, David? We'll start with you first. The Chargers schedule going for this year. We talked a little bit about it backstage, but let's talk about it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the schedule sets up, there's a chance for the Chargers to get off to a very good start. I feel like the beginning of their schedule is a lot easier than the back end of their schedule. I mean, the back end of their schedule is pretty ruthless. I mean, it finishes with basically like 8 AFC games in a row, and like 5 of them are in the division. I mean, towards the end of the season, including, finishing with the Bills and the Chiefs back to back to finish up the season. And I mean, that's a game that could very well mean something. The Chargers and the Chiefs, there's no team in the NFL that has played the Chiefs closer than the Chargers the last couple of seasons. The Chargers are right there with them. Like, they know it too. Like, they know that they can beat that team. They just have to go out there and do it. I mean, that team is so dangerous because Andy Reid is such a fantastic coach, and he just does the most with whatever he has. I mean, he's just a guy, and obviously with Patrick Mahomes, he's just legendarily great. But I mean, the Chargers are right there. I mean, they can definitely get it done against them. I truly believe it. But yeah, the schedule, I mean, I think it sets up favorably. I hate the early bye. I absolutely cannot stand that early bye in week 5. I think that's horrible. But I think that they did do them a favor as far as travel is concerned. But yeah, good chance to get off to a good start, but really, really tough end of the season.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with David. I don't like the week 5 bye. I don't like the way we come out of the bye. We come out of the bye, and I believe the next 2 games are Dallas and Kansas City. So we come out of the bye, and you're like guillotine. You're running through 2 really good defenses, 2 really good offenses. So that's going to be – I know Kellen Moore is going to have some fire to him come week 6. So that'll be kind of fun. But – the schedule itself is actually relatively decent. A couple of nice Monday night games in there after the bye week. I like that. We got a Thursday night game against Las Vegas towards the end of the season. That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I won second place in one of my DFS contests on a Thursday night game this last year.
Nice.
For the Chargers.
Nice.
So yeah, I know how to stack those up. So that was fun. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. I don't mind the schedule. My biggest thing is hating the bye and how we come out of it. Facing 2 really good teams is going to be a tough test off of that. So,
but hey, the NFL loves the Chargers though. 6 primetime games. I mean,
6 primetime
one
games.
of only 3 teams in the NFL that have 6 primetime games. So I think the NFL recognizes that the Chargers are going to be an exciting team, and they're going to be a team that people are going to want to watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and we end the season week 18. We end the season against the Kansas City Chiefs, so that's going to be kind of fun too.
Yeah, crazy.
Yep.
So I'm gonna get back to that statement here in just a second, but I do real quick. The one thing that we didn't really jump on or talk about really was your guys' draft.
Yeah.
I like what the Chargers were able to do with their draft. I feel like they got a stud in round one, Quentin Johnson. High expectations from him. They got the edge from USC in round two. They got a linebacker Henley in round three, who I seen him at the Senior Bowl. Great guy, great kid. I expect big things from him. But what is, David, I'll start with you. What is your overall assessment of the draft for the Chargers this year?
I was going to say systematic, calculated, and very effective. I think is the words I would use for the Chargers draft, because you look at it up from top to bottom. They got players that they needed now and for the future. I mean, they get an explosive wide receiver to pair with Justin Herbert for a long time. They get an edge rusher that can provide some insurance for Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack if they go down, and Tuli Pelotu, who's a guy who led his conference in sacks with 13.5. And a guy who's a little bit better against the run than Chris Rumph is. And then, you go through the third round, you get Deion Henley from Washington, who was a very athletic linebacker, a former safety, a guy who can really do it all. I mean, a great tackler, a good blitzer, good in coverage, like just a very, very good all-around football player. Fourth round, again, just, going throughout this draft, every single round they get players that they need now and in the future. So I love the approach and I love the execution. Yeah, Darius Davis in the fourth round, by the way. Sorry. Kick returner, punt returner. And then they get offensive line, Scott Matlock, and the defensive lineman, Jordan McFadden, an offensive lineman, and then the backup quarterback to finish it out, to be able to satisfy that third QB role to, be able to have a backup for, in case anybody gets hurt.
John, what did you think about the draft?
2 TCU players in the later rounds. That's kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
Darius Davis and then Max Dugan. Dugan was kind of fun to watch. So he might be someone that would be kind of cool in a spot start situation, or maybe a week 18 matchup or something like that. So he's fun. I like what we did early on, and I think David nailed it with the systematic, purposeful. Like they weren't just looking at the board and saying this. They had a plan, and they had a plan for if that plan failed. And obviously, I really like the addition of Quentin Johnston, also TCU, by the way. I like what he brings to the offense. I like Tuli. I'm going to struggle with the last name, so you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I like the way we approached it. Obviously, I'm a big fantasy guy, so I always think fantasy first. So I end up having to look up some of these other guys and see their contributions. And I think Deion Henley is going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's got a lot to offer. I mean, what did he run? He ran like a 4.5 40 at 225 pounds, 6'1", 6'2". I like that a lot. So I think there's some good stuff in there. And like David said, we're building not just for what we need now, but also like looking towards the future. And I think that's a good approach.
All right. So I mentioned earlier I was going to bring it back to the Chargers and the Chiefs, last game of the season. Sean, I'm going to start with you. Then we'll go to David. Is that going to be for the division? The winner of that game takes the division. And give me a final record for the Chargers this year.
Well, I mean, I would love to see us get those double-digit wins. I mean, who doesn't want to end the season with 10 or more wins? So I would love to see that. I think the roster can do it. As always, I'm worried about injury. There always seems to be 1 or 2 key injuries that really kind of hose us in some way, shape, or form and has that ripple effect. So I'd love to see us hit that 10-win mark. As far as that last game, does it come – I mean, we fought to the very end last season to make it to the playoffs. So I could see that being the realm of possibility. David mentioned it earlier. We do fight the Chiefs hard. We bring it every time we play them. It's never a lay down. It's always a fight, and that's fun to watch. So either way, I'm hoping that by week 18, it's still a competitive game. And I hope it sees us already seated and ready to go to the playoffs.
David, same question to you. Is that going to be for the AFC West crown? And give me a end of season record.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can tell me that the Chargers will be able to keep, their main edge rushers healthy, their offensive line healthy, and their main weapons on offense healthy, then I would say absolutely. I mean, the talent on this team is unquestioned. I think the depth is something I still need to see in action, but there's no question about talent. I mean, it's absolutely there. They just have to go out there and do it. Do I think it's going to be for the division? I'm going to say yes. I think it is going to be for the division. I think this team is ready. I think this is going to be one of their best chances to go out there and get a championship. I think they did all of their max restructures in the offseason to be able to bring back this core team together. So I think they really truly believe that. They believe in the quarterback, and they believe in the guys that they have in that room to be able to go out there and do it. So as far as record prediction here, I have already kind of given mine on previous shows, so I have to go with what I said before, which is 11-6 or 12-5. I mean, those are the two records that I can see. This Chargers team is very, very talented, and I expect them to be a lot more effective and more balanced this year.
Awesome. Well, that is all the questions I had. I do greatly appreciate both of you gentlemen coming on, giving your time, giving your knowledge about the Chargers. Let's go ahead. David, we'll start with you. Go ahead again. Tell everybody where they can follow all your work, where they can support you, where they can come in every day. And then John, once he's done, you do the same, please.
Yeah, so again, you can follow me on the Locked On Chargers podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at LockedOnLEC. You can find me on Twitter at DroTalkSD, and you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts and on video on YouTube.
And you can find my written work on dynastyleaguefootball.com. Once the season starts, you'll probably see me in the DFS streets over on Fantasy Pros, and I do contribute to the expert consensus rankings over there as well. You can follow me on Twitter at John_Hesterman.
And if you're going to be at the Fantasy Football Expo in a couple of weeks, you can follow John there too. If you don't let him know you're following him, it's kind of creepy, but do it anyway. I mean, I don't care. So again, gentlemen, I do want to thank you both for coming on. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge of the Chargers and sharing it with the audience. To everybody watching at home, have a good night and be safe.
What's up, Title Tribe? We appreciate you watching the show. If you want to catch up on all of our college football content, make sure you subscribe to the CFB Nation by clicking their link below. Make sure you subscribe to the Toilets Titles Podcast Network by clicking our link below. And make sure to catch our other content by watching these videos to the side.